Today I'm sharing with you exactly how we made our Venetian plaster fireplace.
Hey, we're Blake and Melanie. We're on a journey to discover the things that fill life with joy, find more balance in the everyday, and even pursue some of our crazy ideas. We're sharing our story in the hopes that it'll encourage you to know yours and inspire you to go after your own big ideas. So we're inviting you along for it all.
Obviously, we all like good things. Of course, everyone's heard of Restoration Hardware, most expensive place ever, right? So you're Googling, you're on Pinterest, and you find the coolest, awesome, what do you even call it? Stone fireplace. And of course, it's Restoration Hardware. I don't think they even sell it. It's just like, it's in all their photos, right? It's like, you want that cool looking stone fireplace. So of course, you Google stone fireplace. What else is it? Cast plaster or something fireplace, right? Stone fireplace. You type it in and you can get them, but they're expensive. So of course, you immediately just say to yourself, no, we're not doing that, because who has that kind of money for a fireplace? So obviously we threw that straight out the door. We're not spending that much money on a fireplace. Obviously the dream still exists and we still want that type of fireplace. So we got this idea in our head that like maybe we could make something similar to what that is. Obviously it couldn't be stone. We're not gonna buy stone and like carve it and all this stuff, but maybe we could do something that looked like a stone fireplace or like one of those plastery fireplaces, but we weren't really sure. There's no information about it online. There's no one's like how to Pinterest, like how to make a stone fireplace, right? So we kind of just let that be. We were like, maybe we'll figure it out later, but for now, we have no idea. Then this is where the Instagram algorithm came in and saved me. Wait, make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe. Okay, back to it. Obviously, we do a lot of Venetian plaster. So of course, Instagram, with their knowledge, is showing us Venetian plaster accounts. So I found this guy called Classic Wall Finishes. Classic Wall Finishes?
Yeah.
I'll tag him maybe down below. You know, I start following this guy. I just think he does like, you know, walls or something like that. So I'm not thinking anything of it. But lo and behold, he starts posting on his stories these like Venetian plaster. He's like building these exact fireplaces we want to build. So I start screenshotting like all his fireplace stories. So he has all these fireplace stuff and shows how he builds them and all this stuff. So I'm screenshotting all these because I'm like, nobody has this information anywhere. Like, how do I make this? And it's exactly what we want to do. So obviously now we figured out we can make this, and it might be kind of hard, but it is something we can do. So after 500 screenshots later, we decided to go ahead and figure this thing out. So thanks for helping us figure this out. So now I'm gonna share with you how we made this step by step and how much it cost. So the first thing we did was figure out what kind of design we wanted. Now we knew we wanted this like certain style, which I don't know what that would be considered, but we didn't know like the dimensions. And so we kind of got a bunch of pieces of wood and kind of held them up to figure out like how we wanted it to feel and how big or how small we wanted the edges to be. Obviously how deep we wanted it to be. So we had to figure out all those like kind of dimensions so we could figure out what kind of wood we needed, what materials we needed. So first step was figuring it out. We just kind of winged it. So it wasn't like we went out this strategically, like this is the first time we're ever doing this. So obviously we had no idea what we were doing. The room kind of dictated how big it could be. Obviously our current fireplace, we weren't gonna like move any walls. We didn't want to move any of the trim pieces. So we literally just made it fit our area. And so there was kind of limited options, but that almost helped us kind of just make quick decisions and get going. So this step 2 is obviously get the materials. Our original plan was just because we didn't know what we're doing. So our original plan was essentially just to get the materials we think we need and then just realize that we're probably gonna have to go back to the store like a million times. So we knew from the screenshots that we needed a couple things. Something called a metal stud, which is essentially a 2x4 that's metal. And that's because you're gonna be putting it next to a fireplace. It's hot, so it's good to have something that is kind of heat and flame resistant. Those go around the very center of the fireplace, the closest part to the flames, obviously. Also, it bridges the gap between, gives you those angled, what do you call them? just the angled areas. So that's how we're bridging that gap. We estimated we needed 2 8-foot pieces of the metal studs, and that cost $9.74. Obviously, working with metal studs, you have to cut them. So there's multiple ways you can cut them. We just went with the easiest one, which is tin snips. We had to pick up some tin snips because we didn't have them. Obviously, that's a good tool to have just in general, and that cost $14.97. So the other things we needed were some 2x4 wood pieces. So the outer pieces of the fireplace, we didn't need to be metal studs because it's further away from the fire. So we felt comfortable using wood. That gives it a little bit more structural kind of integrity. The metal studs are a little flimsy on their own, but they get rigid when you kind of connect them all together. So we went with wood on the outside, and that's just normal 2x4 pieces, nothing crazy there. We estimated we needed 3 2x4s, and that was $18.66. So obviously you need to attach this all together, something to attach it to the brick that we were going into, and obviously to itself. So we got a bunch of different screws. We got brick screws, we got metal screws, we actually got 2 different kind of brick screws actually, now that I'm looking at this. We got some nails just for the wood so that it would be super flat. So I'll list the prices here. They range from like $8 to $3 to $4. So if you already have a bunch of screws or you have those type of screws, I know a lot of times like you buy a box of screws and you'll just have it forever because you're not using that many screws. So you might already have this stuff, but I wanted to include that in the cost because you do need that for this project. So to build the frame, we started with the metal studs closest to the fireplace. We added those just kind of with those brick screws into the brick so that they would be really locked on there. That gives us a kind of an edge to go off of for the rest of the frame. And then the outside frame with the 2x4s, we essentially just built miniature like framed walls. We essentially just cut the wood to the lengths we needed it to be, and then we created a frame with smaller pieces to bridge the gap. We did that for the sides and the top, and then we attached that to the wall with those brick screws and then attached them to themselves just to kind of add some structural like strength to the whole thing. So to bridge the gap between the metal studs and the wood frames that we made, we cut these custom sized like metal stud pieces with these wing pieces on them. And again, you can just kind of cut these with your little tin snips. But that was kind of a little tedious, but essentially they're just metal studs flipped over, and that creates the bridge pieces. You can kind of bend the wing tips over, and then we nailed those on to the wood, and then we kind of used these other flatter screws to attach it to the metal stud. We ended up actually just using Gorilla Glue to attach these to the metal studs so that it would be perfectly flat, but we did attach them with screws to begin with. So next up, obviously, is covering the thing with a flat surface. For this, we used a Hardy Backer board, which is just a concrete board. So you could use kind of any concrete board. The Hardy Backer is obviously, I think, just nicer, but you could probably get away with any kind of concrete board. We estimated we needed 2 of the concrete boards, and that came to $18.56. We almost used all of the concrete board, but we did have a little bit left over. The other thing with concrete board is you're gonna need a way to cut it. So we bought one of the scoring knife with that, and that was $10.97. It was not very easy, but it did work. So if you're looking for just a cheaper option, you can do that. And then obviously you need a way to attach the concrete board to the frame that we made. For this, we got just Hardy Backer screws, and those are just screws made for a concrete board, so they'll go right through it. And those cost $9.77. Now that we had kind of the exterior pieces that we're gonna go over the frame, we cut and scored all the pieces. We had to measure out everything, but we then cut and scored all the pieces of the concrete board to attach to our frame. Now this was a very annoying and tedious process. Like I said, the scoring was not very easy. It just took a very long time, but once we got all the pieces cut, for the most part, everything worked smoothly. We had a few pieces that we did the wrong size, and we had extra Hardy Backer board already to do that, so it worked out perfect. And then we just attached those with those concrete screws. Once we were done covering the frame with the cement board, we wanted to make sure the seams were strong because they were just kind of loose. So we got some seam tape, just to kind of cover all the seams that we wanted to, just to kind of give it extra strength and make sure they were nice and clean. So we got some seam tape, and that was $5.97. So the next thing was to kind of like get this ready to be coated. Now, I'm not really sure like what the right way to coat this would be, but what we found was this concrete feather finish that we could skim coat the outside of our boards with. This is just gonna help to kind of make it more of a solid piece. That just seemed to work really well. Skim coat. Some people actually use this for the final finish. We didn't want that to be the final finish, but we thought it was a good way to kind of join everything together. So the feather finish cost $18.34. So now that we have everything coated with our cement finish, we were now ready to move on to the plaster. So the first thing you're going to do is prime the cement again, because it's super smooth right now. So you essentially want to add more grit back onto it. And to give it more adhesion, we decided to use quartz primer. We already had that, so I'm not gonna add that into the total cost. But if you pick that up, the smallest size you can get is about $24. So obviously now the Venetian plaster, we just got our same Marmarino KS plaster. It's a coarser Venetian plaster, so it's not super shiny, and that's just kind of like what we like. So if you pick that up from Frenzy Color, that'll cost about $45.55. And that was for 3 kg of Marmarino KS. And they also tinted that for us as well. So another thing we already had that just to finish off the fireplace was the soapstone sealer. This is just kind of a coat that you put on at the end of the application process that kind of seals it in and helps protect all your Venetian plaster, and just in case you get anything smudges on it. So we already had that. Again, I'm not gonna maybe add that into the cost just because we already had it, and if we barely used any of it because it's such a small project. But if you were to pick up the smallest size they offer, it's about $39 for soapstone. We primed it up. We actually ended up doing 3 coats of Venetian plaster. We weren't really happy with the first coat we did. I don't know why. We just didn't really like it. We kind of worked in the wrong direction. And then the second coat and third coat, we decided to do it the opposite direction, and it felt a lot better, smoother, nicer. So decided to do 3 coats of Venetian plaster, and it turned out really good. So obviously after that dried, we sealed it up with the soapstone, and it looks really, really good. So for the grand total for the project, what we spent, our total was $177.42. So way less than what it was gonna cost. If you had to buy some soapstone and some quartz primer, it might cost you more, like $240. And then there's a few tools that you might not have on hand. Again, we didn't want to add those in because that's kind of just like a investment. So if you need to get like an impact drill or a trowel, that might cost a little bit extra. But ultimately you could probably do this, even if you had to buy all the tools, you could do this under $300. Obviously, it takes a little bit of work to do, not gonna lie. But the results are great, and I'm super happy with this. We got our restoration hardware look, we got our stone fireplace look for under $200, and so that makes me very happy. I'll show you some kind of beauty shots now of it finished, and hope you guys enjoy.